Hey everybody, welcome to Cars and Health Bars. This is the podcast where we talk about both the automotive industry as well as gaming. Today we're going to be talking about LSs. Are they overrated? Jordan, what are your thoughts on this?
RLS is overrated. Simply put, no. I do not think LSs are overrated.
Okay,
LSs are 20 years old, man. Like, we're just getting started in this industry, man.
I'm going to argue the point that everybody else is going to argue that is on the non-LS side. They're only so readily used because they're so readily available. And I understand it's because they outlast their bodies and they're so versatile in what you can do, the aftermarket support. But you can't tell me that seeing these car YouTubers, like for example Weston Chaplin, dude, he put a 12 valve Cummins in a Mustang. You can't tell me that that isn't just amazing. Just to hear the sound of just like a Cummins and the black smoke coming out of a Mustang of all things, dude.
I mean, I would argue that while it is a nice swap, it's really serving no purpose other than to be cool. Because the 5.0 Coyote Gen 2 or 3 is an amazing platform. I would trade it. While I think the 12 valve is cool, I don't think it's practical in any sense.
But in any aspect, I feel like I give more respect to the non LS guys because of that lack of aftermarket support. It's like they know the challenge and they accept it, and I feel like it's just it's more unique to see how someone goes about tackling a project where they know they're not going to have that support. They know that they're probably going to have to fabricate motor mounts. They're probably going to have to make cuts where they probably didn't want to originally make a cut. You know,
I agree. I think it is a challenge, and I think not many people are even into. I don't think most people realize how much work goes into swapping something that isn't readily available at a junkyard or has a lot of aftermarket support.
so there's one thing that I will argue against. I don't like seeing guys who just put different engines in cars just to say, well, for example, I'm gonna guy saying, hey, I'm gonna put an LS in a Mustang because I'm gonna make it run right this time. That isn't the right way about going about this. It's all about doing it for the build, not for the purpose of, oh, I'm gonna go make somebody mad, or I'm gonna put an LS in a Fox body, because that's what literally every drag racer does whenever they get a hold of a Fox body and an LS. They put them together because that's the most, not, I mean, I understand there's a lot of benefits to it because that's like you said, it's got a lot of aftermarket support in that body. It's a unibody. It's going to fly down the track. But I just like the idea of someone taking on that challenge, tackling that, putting something different, doing something a little out of the ordinary, out of the box. And I feel like that's what gets the views on YouTube. It's like these guys doing the stuff that is out of the ordinary, out of the box.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is what gets the views on YouTube. But at the same time, the reason the Fox body is so often LS swapped like that is because you can find that Fox body at any local junkyard. I mean, they made tons of them for so long.
That's very true. I feel like that pairing
And it's just
is,
a combo that everyone loves.
yeah, it's like I said, it's so readily available. You could probably find a Fox body and a LS in the same junkyard, and almost everywhere
Absolutely.
there is a Fox body, because just LSs are everywhere. You can't there's not you can't
And
go to a,
everyone's grandma had a Fox body, bro.
yeah, I mean
Sunday driver.
you can't just go to a junkyard and be like, hey man, you got a 5.0 Coyote laying around. It's a shot in the dark compared to, hey man, you got an LS laying around. Yeah, I got like 200 5.3s laying around because they put that thing in everything.
Well, luckily the 5.0 is getting easier to find. A lot more trucks are being decommissioned. And kind of like the LSs, you don't see the actual LS as much. You see the truck engines, the iron blocks more. And it's kind of the same thing with the Coyote. You don't see the actual Coyote. You see the 5.0 truck engines in the junkyard more. So you may not have the best set of heads out the box or something.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big confusion. Is the I guess it isn't wrong to call a 5.3 truck motor an LS, but whenever most people think of an LS, they think of a motor that's came out of a Camaro or a Vet or
Yeah, absolutely.
anything like that.
CTSV.
And these people, they claim, oh, I've got an LS. Yeah, you do, but you kind of don't. You've got a truck motor, man.
Yeah. Oh, you got an iron block with Gen 3 rods, Gen 3 pistons, like
And
it's not all that, man. Like I mean,
it,
sure, like the 5.7 LSs, they're Gen 3 rod piston, but at the same time they're aluminum block, so at least you get the better cooling beneficence, and it weighs less.
and it's not that I'm knocking that at all. I mean, there's a world of endless capabilities of an iron block 5.3. They definitely take a lot more abuse. It's a heavier block, but it's just the fact that you're saying, hey, I got an LS swap, da da da. Yeah, you do, but do you really?
Yeah, like if you only have a 5.3 pull out with stock heads, it's nothing to brag about. At least there's some 2.43s on there with a cam and intake or something. Then it'd be more like a LS out of the box. It wouldn't be truckish. Like
Right. And I mean, even if you did get an old iron block, you can take it to a machine shop, and you can easily put a awesome heartbeat in that block.
for sure.
So
I mean, it's
Jordan,
super easy to find Gen 4 internals.
so on the topic of LS, what do you think on the LS versus LT? Other than, of course, you got to have money to have an LT.
It depends on what you're doing. Swapping LTs are definitely not mainstream right now, and it's a lot harder to get parts. And it's a lot
Uh,
harder to find people who tune direct injection. Like some people just aren't in that market.
as a guy who tears into these blocks on a daily and sees the inner workings, you're not just the guy shelling out money. Say, hey, take my car to a tuning shop. Make my car fast. You're the ones actually getting your hands dirty, seeing the issues. What issues do you see that the LS has that the LT doesn't? What did they perfect between that generation gap?
Well, I definitely wouldn't say they perfected everything, as I'm still seeing sleeve issues on some LTs that are being hot lapped. But as far as improvements from Gen 4 LS in particular to Gen 5, I'd say the best thing is definitely the forged crank and main caps, because most LSs are not forged main and crank unless you have an LS9 or LS7, whereas every LT Gen 5 engine will have forged mains. And also every LT will have oil squirters for the bottom of the piston to lube the wrist pin and cool the piston.
You've really dug deep in these and found the issues. That's super cool.
The only issues I'm really seeing a lot of out of the Gen 5 LTs are the high pressure fuel pumps ripping from bigger cams, which have increased fuel load on the cam.
So say I am a guy that's, hey, I'm going to LS swap, let's say, we'll say a Challenger, for example. What are some things that I would want to beef up to make that usable?
Well, if you're wanting to swap it to a Challenger, I'm assuming it's a V6. I hope you're not swapping into a 5.7 car better. But if you're trying to beef up internals, definitely look at rods first. Rods are important, and usually if you pinch a ring, you're bending a rod. So even if you just were to mess up the cylinder walls, if you had forged rods and they didn't bend, worst case scenario, man, you're out a crank, rods, a block. Like it's total carnage if you do have a catastrophic failure.
Right. I don't know. A swap that just comes to mind that I've seen on the internet is a Hellcat swapped Dakota. And although it still is a Mopar engine and a Mopar body, just the idea of having that big motor in a Dodge Dakota just blows my mind. Like that, I don't know. And I have personally have a Dodge Dakota, and I would love to have an LS in it. That would just be amazing. But whenever I started seeing these videos pop of this Hellcat swap Dakota, I was like, dang, that's just as cool, you know.
There's a local one here at Beach Bend that I've seen run tens, and he still streets it.
See that is just so cool, and I mean, people go as far as to that guy I watch. He's got the whole interior done just like a Hellcat Challenger, and
Yeah,
it's the coolest thing to see people fully commit
yeah.
to their build.
I really like interior swaps. I feel like that's a highly underrated part of swapping a car, especially like resto mods.
Absolutely, and like I'm building a third gen Camaro. I see a lot of people putting fifth gen Camaro seats inside
Consoles.
the third gen. It just looks so clean. It's like you're taking something old and you're updating it. It's no different than
You
taking
can,
your house, gutting your house, and just putting brand new cabinets and brand new furniture. It just looks so nice. You have that old aesthetic look, but on the inside, you've got all that new stuff. Maybe even have like your touch screen and everything like that. It's just so awesome to look old while also being new. It's like that's just like the new school now. The
it's
new
nice to
school is being
see
old
old
school.
cars. The old cars that are like still relevant because they've been swapped are really nice to see. I
Abs-
like to see personally on interior swaps door panels. I feel like that's really hard to do, but if you can do it, then it looks amazing. There's a second gen Camaro I see with an LS3 and fifth gen Camaro interior, and this dude has fifth gen Camaro dash, door panels, console, uh, hood, the vent, that SS like late model vent. It's pretty much a fifth gen turned into a second gen.
that's awesome. And there's one that drives around local that's a first gen with all fifth gen parts. It's got fifth gen bumper, and I think it's even been at your shop before you worked there. It's just like it's a really clean build, and it looks like it was done professionally. It's just so unreal to see. It's hard to even make that distinction. Actually, I think it's the other way around. It's a fifth gen that is
Yes, I've
doctored
seen
up.
that car. We did do one recently,
That
a
car is
silver
just
one.
so unique that
Still
they
has the
were
hideaway headlights
yeah
like the first gen.
that they were able to incorporate that old body style on a new body style car. It's just like that blows my mind that they can do that.
The fifth gen Trans Am conversion is probably the coolest, like opposite of resto mod. I don't know what you would even call that, where you swap to look like an older car instead of an older car look newer. Make a newer car look older. It's kind of like the rustic wraps, kind
Absolutely. So to wrap everything back around to the original point, Jordan, if you had the money, if money wasn't a thing, what body would you put a LS in? How would you go about doing your ideal LS swap?
of. If it had to be a swap for me, and this is gonna be kind of weird for most people, but I'm a truck guy at heart, so C10. Obviously, it's
Absolutely.
not a perfect body, but I just love the way the square body S10 looks.
I couldn't agree more. And there's of course referring back to a
It's probably
local
the
car.
best truck.
There's like a rat rotted out truck that goes to a lot of our local car shows, and it is just it's the coolest build ever. I don't even know if it's LS. I believe it's actually probably 350 or 383, but the fact that it could have that powertrain in it of the LS is that would make it even better if it's not already.
Absolutely. And what would be really cool to see is like a torque tube and a rear mounted transmission like a Corvette under one
And for me, of course,
to keep the weight
I'm an
distribution.
I'm an LS guy through and through. I'm representing the other side that I think I can get behind. If it was up to me, money wasn't an option. If I had to do a build that is not LS built, I would still stick to my Dodge Dakota, but I probably wouldn't do a Hellcat. That'd be a close second to a swap. But I've talked to Jordan about it before. A 12 valve would be so cool, or any kind of diesel engine. Just 12 valve comes to mind would be amazing in that truck. It would just be absurd to see that. It's not a mid-sized truck and it's not a full-size truck. It's kind of in between. It would just be insane to see that truck. And this idea was before the Duramax Colorado came along. Before that was a thing. This full size diesel engine inside of this semi mid sized truck. It just sounds unbelievable to me. It sounds crazy. It just
What
sounds
I
like
think would be cool is a mini SRT 10.
that would be very unique. Yeah,
It's kind of like Dodge could do that now with the Hellcat kind of in a mini truck.
yeah, they could. And like I said, that same guy I know that has the Dodge Dakota Hellcat. He has a newer Ram, like a fourth gen Ram. He also has the same Hellcat engine in that truck, and it's like I don't know why Dodge don't go
That's
ahead and do
awesome.
this. They've got the Trackhawk, which is an SUV. They've got the
The
Charger, the
TRX
Challenger.
is cool, but it's off-road is kind of like the intent of it. It's not really a street truck like the SRT10 was.
Right, and they need Dodge needs to make their Ford Lightning. They need to make a sport truck. They would clean house if they. I mean, they've
I
got
I would say the TRX is their addition to that.
I
unless you're talking full electric.
right. I understand that, but they need to have a truck that's designed for the street, not off road. They need to. That would be just so cool. The
Yeah, I think their
idea
customer base would really like that.
of an all-wheel drive truck with the Hellcat or even a Demon package, that would be absurd to have that. Which, of course, I don't know if Chevrolet has any sort of sport truck necessarily. I could be wrong. Just nothing comes to mind. And of course, Ford's pretty much just dominating the sport truck market with their Ford Lightning.
Say Chevy has the best sport truck ever made,
What's that?
the Cyclone.
The Cyclone, yeah. But it's they need to bring that back. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Oh, we're doing that at work here soon.
A Cyclone?
We are doing a Colorado twin turbo build.
That is,
That
see,
is going to be all-wheel drive.
you knowing me personally knows that Colorados go deep because that was my first truck, and if I hadn't totaled that truck, I would definitely still have it to this day. But man, that I love
We're
those
going to have bed
Colorados.
mounts with hood scoop venting air into the turbos.
So on the topic of mount on LS swaps,
And
how well did it go in that Colorado? Was it very much fab work? What went into that?
we still haven't actually done it, but our coworker has already swapped his Colorado,
Oh wow.
and it requires very little fab work. Only thing I would do is change power steering lines, and I would just buy a 5.3 or 6.0 pull out. His is actually an aluminum block LS2.
Like I said,
But
LSs are so
it's
they're
really easy
aftermarket
to
sport.
swap, and it's super easy to really clean if you know what you're doing.
You could probably just go on Google right now and type in, LS Colorado swap, and you probably go right to the motor mounts. Probably don't even have to fabricate anything.
Absolutely.
There's just so much aftermarket support, especially if you're putting an LS in a GM vehicle, because people are doing that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure there's.
The only thing you don't see a lot of is like regular like sedans, like mom cars, kind of
See,
like
that would be the ultimate sleeper build, but the issue is
what
those
dominates
cars are
that
front wheel
market
drive.
is like what dominates that market is like K series Honda, 2J, like
I think my mind would be blown if I pulled up next to a Nissan Altima that was hitting a lick. I don't know what I would do, man.
it's been done. I'm fairly positive I've seen one before on YouTube somewhere.
That is just super cool. I mean, any engine
And that's
in like
why I don't think LS swaps are overrated.
it's a very hard point to argue. But
When you see a mail van hitting a lick down Beach Bend, you can't tell me they're not overrated, bro. Like, or that they are overrated, because they aren't. I've never seen a mail truck hit a lick until LS swaps, bro.
let's just say he isn't missing any deliveries.
Homie will make you get your package before they even say it's shipped.
Yeah, it's
This
just
is why
and
LS swaps need to be part of the U.S. government and our mail vehicles.
and
Make
it
sure
all
to go talk to your local politician about this.
you run into the issue too that it's not really the consumers it's not really on the consumer that LS swaps are so over not even overrated but overdone is because like there's so much aftermarket support you'd almost be dumb to I mean you're basically saying okay I understand that I'm going to have to fabricate or I'm going to have a lot of money to have someone fabricate it for me whenever you're accepting the challenge of not doing an LS build. I'm sure there is support. I'm almost sure there's support for other automakers and other engines, but the versatility and the availability are going to affect you drastically, and you're going to end up paying for it in the long run, whether you do it yourself or
And
not.
we're in a parts shortage right now for sure, man. It is very hard to get even LS parts right now. I couldn't imagine trying to get 50 Coyote parts or Dodge parts.
And it just like I said, it doesn't necessarily fall on the consumer. It falls on availability and challenge. It's just like a lot of people don't have the money to do these big jobs. I'm sure there's people that do want to do Coyote swaps or Hellcat swaps, but it's like you've got Joe Schmo down here that's got his 5.3 for $200, or you've got a 5.0 that's getting pulled out of a wrecked Mustang. You can just assume which one's going to cost more. Joe Schmo is going to have his $200, and you're going to have an old Iron Block 5.3 swapped in whatever you want to.
And you can't really argue transmissions on that point unless you get an automatic when it comes to the Mustang, because the MT82 is not like ideal for a swap. If you're wanting more power out of your 5.0, An MT82 is not going to take it in stock form. I'd rather have a Tremec Magnum, for example.
That's all
So to
you
argue
on.
that the transmissions are bad from GM, I think you're overlooking Ford's horrible MT82 design.
Yeah, I think the 4L8060 or 4L60 gets so much crap that nobody even they just don't even bat an eye at Ford's transmission because it's like
Yeah.
let's
And the
just
4L60, when done right, is a good transmission. And the MT82 is too, but which one's going to be cheaper? Obviously, the 4L60, there's just more parts circulating for it right now because they're so common.
absolutely, yeah. And I mean I just that's what hurts them is they're so readily available. You almost be stupid not to go get that. I
It's like,
mean,
why not go back with the 4L60, even if you do eventually have like two, three shift issues or whatever?
absolutely. I could definitely see that.
It'd be cheaper to build a 4L60 than to buy a 6L80 probably too, so.
Seeing it,
It's
I
kind of a
mean,
hard argument to swap a nicer trans into the LS from a GM like truck unless you can find one for cheap at a junkyard who doesn't know what they got.
right, yeah. So on that note, I guess we're going to be the opposite of 4L60E, and we are going to change gears into our gaming topic of the day, if that sounds good to you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, of course, we want to hit a hot, hot, hot topic on our first episode, and this is something that we can both talk on hours about. So, let me ask you, Jordan, is Battlefield getting better?
That's a hard question for me.
And we're not just talking about 2042, we're talking about as a franchise, right?
Yes, absolutely. I don't want to circle it on just one game.
Right. Because I mean just like Battlefield 4 and basically all multi-million dollar or AAA games will say have rocky starts. It's just like they're pushed to put out a game by a certain timeline. You don't see these AAA games delaying the release times like all these other small
No,
little jobs. Like they
they suffer game quality because of this, and I think the community needs to take a step back and stop pushing so hard. I think we should push for better content, not better delivery times. Because like games like The Last of Us, they just came out of the blue because they took so much time building the games.
So, what are some of the issues you have? We'll go ahead and hit on 2042 first. What are some of the issues you've personally had with 2042?
Frame rate issues. It's very hard for me to get over. Like, it's hard for me to get a consistent 50 FPS, let alone 40 most of the time. The game is poorly optimized on PC. I can't speak for console, but I have an i7 8700K unlocked. It's not a horrible PCM. It should run 2042 if it can run Modern Warfare 2 or Battlefield 1 on max settings. Like, it's clearly an optimization issue. I've got the latest drivers. It's not a hardware issue on my end. I feel like this game was just rushed out to be for everyone to play it. The trailer was amazing and the launch was really good, but I actually had better frame rate on the beta of the game than on the full game.
It's to be noted that Jordan, what I don't think will be wanting to speak on as far as the actual combat and the gameplay goes, because I mean the game was just unplayable for him. It's just like
I
it's
I do enjoy content of the game as far as the only gameplay issue I have an issue with is that characters are very hard to tell apart from your team and enemy team. But other than that, a few weapon issues, I can't complain. Vehicles seem amazing on the game,
so Jordan. What
and mechanics and movement seem amazing as well.
you were a big fan of the Realms originally, and I know you obviously haven't played it since a little bit after launch. What did you think of them implementing Realms on trying to go back to that old Battlefield that that was so awesome that brings back all those memories, all that good stuff?
I think that was absolutely awesome, and they should continue to try and go into doing that in new released games, Battlefield 3042 or whatever. But It's really nice to see that they're still catering to some veterans with that. I feel like more games need to start doing this because you don't see this on games like Call of Duty. Battlefield's really standing out with that.
Yeah, it's and from my perspective, and I think almost everybody would get on this point with me. Battlefield listens to their community way, way, way better than Call of Duty does, and you see it. Like, for example, this is December 20th for a time example. Call of Duty released Rocket League in their game. They don't even have leaderboards yet. But here's Rocket League for you. Skill based matchmaking is, from what I saw, just still atrocious. Like, Jordan is a highly skilled player compared to me. I'm, semi casual. I would say even leaning more towards casual, especially in lobbies with him. It's like we almost can't play with each other because it'll be so unenjoyable for me. I'll get paired with people who are like extremely highly skilled, and the players will end up just sitting around and camping or doing strategies that throw him off because he's got a higher level of playing. And it's like Battlefield, they have these live streams all the time where they're clearly saying, hey, we messed up, here's where we messed up, here's where we're going to fix things. Case in point, the launch, oh my god, no cover everywhere. It might as well be D-Day storming the shores, because if you weren't in cover already, if you were working your way up, you were going to get obliterated in the battlefield and you weren't going to go anywhere. But they listened. The maps have changed. There's cover where there used to be. Like, they literally put cover in the maps that they were currently already on. They didn't add new maps. They fixed the old maps. They listen, and they make changes. And Call of Duty just, if they do make changes, it's almost too late because a Call of Duty life cycle is just so fast. And it's like,
Absolutely.
they don't.
Battlefield does definitely do map changes way better than Call of Duty. Call of Duty, the only map changes you'll ever see are glitches. They will not change the map. Once it's there, it is there.
And I think you'd agree too. By the time a Call of Duty map is fixed, the game's already like dead. It's already out of its life cycle. We already have a
Absolutely.
trailer
I can
for.
think of Black Ops 2, like multiple spawn issues in that game, and they just did not get fixed ever.
Before we get too deep into Call of Duty, let's loop back to Battlefield and
Yeah.
what I think that I think Battlefield is getting better. I've actually reinstalled 2042 for the first time in a couple months. I actually am guilty of uninstalling it, not playing it during that. I guess more or less them repairing their wounds of the launch of not having cover. A lot of people were very unhappy about the operators. But I do feel like it plays. It, of course, they're never going to be able to recreate Battlefield 4 or 3, any of that nostalgia. It's just the movement system's different, the engine's different, everything about the game is different. But what they can do is take what went so well about Battlefield 4 and 3 and implement that into a new engine, into new movement, and make it function. There is a way they can do it, and I think they're working their way towards it. And Battlefield, of course, has a longer lifetime than Call of Duty, and I think they'll get to that point, but it's just going to take time. And I do think Battlefield 2042 has the potential to have that replayability of Battlefield 4, not to the extent of Battlefield 4. Me and Jordan could hop on there right now and binge it for days like that. Just Battlefield 4 is about as good as it gets in the Battlefield genre. But 2042 is getting there. I think that if they keep working on it, keep listening to their fans, they'll eventually have it licked. They'll eventually have a game that we can look back and say, "Hey, that was a good game. They worked it out." I mean, if you've been gaming for a while, you can even think back to how atrocious Battlefield 4's launch was.
Absolutely.
I
It
wasn't.
was absolutely horrible.
I personally wasn't there for it, but Jordan, of course, he can attest for that.
Absolutely. You would pass a corner and you would get shot by someone who should be literally not able to penetrate you through the wall, but they're still killing you because you're desyncing so bad from your character. Like, it's like your character is a few seconds behind you on their screen.
Jordan, in your opinion, what are the
And
Battlefield
there were
games?
very overpowered weapons at launch of Battlefield 2.
Absolutely. What are some of the games that Battlefield, in your opinion, more or less wants us to just look past and ignore? Because in my opinion, there's a gap between Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 2042, and in that gap, is there anything?
So, a lot of people will hate on Hardline because that was the bandwagon. But I actually do not hate on Hardline. I think it was a well done game. I think people misunderstood what Hardline was. It wasn't trying to be a military shooter as much as more of a cops and robbers type feel. And I think people got too seriously caught up in the fact that it was not. It was cops and robbers. It wasn't more than that.
And I
And then
think
as far as Battlefield 1, I think you really can't go wrong with Battlefield 1. It's such a great game. The campaign was amazing, the storytelling, the music, the maps, everything about that game was great. The launch was fantastic. It's one of the best Battlefield launches of all time, I think.
I think a lot of the fans look past those games because they were so hurt that, of course, Battlefield Hardline had the standards of Battlefield 4 to live up to, and of course, it's nothing like Battlefield 4, and I think that hurt a lot of fans. They didn't want that change. They didn't want to do something different. They wanted another Battlefield 4, and like most fans of the Battlefield franchise, I'm sure yourself was possibly looking for a Bad Company 2 game or Bad Company 3.
Absolutely, I love Bad Company. Bad Company 2 is my favorite of all time.
I think that's what's hurting a lot of the fans is they want to see that Bad Company back, and it's just like they're holding on to that. And I feel like the reason 2042 is maybe getting a little bit more people to say maybe it's not that bad is because they might finally be understanding. Hey, we got to give them a chance to not do Bad Company 3. They can do other games. You can try again. We can try a different
Absolutely.
platform.
I think Bad Company was 2. 2 was great. I don't see why they would have to make number 3, especially now. I don't think they would do number 3 good because it's been too long of a gap.
Yeah.
And I think people need to let go as much as we love the past, we must grow as people and accept it and move on.
So, and I also think part of Battlefield 1, I also enjoyed Battlefield 1. It didn't, I played it enough to where, it'd get me to, Call of Duty's launch a couple months later. But it would have been nice to have actually taken a pit stop and enjoyed that ride. It was so good. But the Cavalry was a great introduction. That's so much fun just to goof around, not really try to go for the most kills in the world. But I feel like maybe
Absolutely.
Battlefield 1 was hurt, and this might be my opinion, by Call of Duty. Just they were the first ones, I want to say, that jumped into the World War. I believe it was World War II. And they kind of just, the fans were mad at Call of Duty because they're like, hey, and rightfully so, we want a modern shooter game. We want another Black Ops. We want another Modern Warfare. Why are you giving us this? We had this in, Call of Duty 4. What is this? And I feel like possibly Battlefield 1 got that same collateral damage because their fans were like, what is this? We want a modern shooter game. We don't want to go back in the past. We don't want to go too far in the future and get to Advanced Warfare. We want to be in a modern shooter game.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree with that.
It's just
Most people, it's too common now to go with a common, like, modern shooter. Like, games I love, for example, like Black Ops 2, were set in the future. I don't think futuristic games are necessarily bad. I think 2042, it's a near future. I think that's great. I think we should do more of that.
I think Battlefield 2042's dipping in the future enough to not ward off fans. It's just the perfect amount. I feel like Call of Duty, they went super extreme way too fast with the advanced movements, the tech. Like, I feel like Battlefield 2042 did it right. They introduced.
Absolutely. Like the wingsuit is something that you could totally see a soldier in real life having if he were required to be at somewhere where you had to change elevation drastically.
I feel like they just tried to change too much too quickly, and I feel like they're moving in the right direction. I don't. Thinking back, I don't know if 2042 will be a staple. I do think it will. It will last a lot longer than people think. Depending on what the
I
next
agree with
Battlefield
that.
is, it's going to go through its rough spout. We're just a little over a year into its life cycle. We're seeing those growing pains, and we're working through it. And as the only super difficult thing right now is like Jordan said. It's not optimized well enough for a lot of players to play on. I mean, you can even go to the Steam account.
I think
It's
that's part of the reason why the game has suffered so much is that most of the player base that could have played the last game cannot play the new game.
absolutely, and it's affecting them. If you go to Steam, that's like most of the comments are either about of course the growing pains of the launch, but also it's not optimized, and a lot of people want to play it but can't play it. That's, you shouldn't have to have a several $1,000 PC just to run, the newest shooter game. We understand as gamers that we have to do our share. We bought a PC. We have to upgrade every now and again. We're not like console. They just go out and buy the new console. PC players, we have to understand when it's time to upgrade our drivers, when it's time to upgrade our graphics cards. And they kind of just threw us in the water. Like I've seen
You pretty
Jordan.
much had to buy a new PC.
I've seen Jordan stream while he plays it. It is literally unplayable. Like I mean, I even had an older PC whenever it first launched, and I played on my old PC for the beta, and
Yeah, the beta.
it seriously was unplayable. Like I wanted to so bad because it reminded me a little of Battlefield 4. I'm like, okay, this is what we wanted. They listened, and it's like I literally can't play because, granted, I had an extremely old PC, but it wasn't so old that I shouldn't have been able to even like physically move. Like it was like Jordan said, it's like the hit registry. Everything was just god awful, and I spent.
Absolutely. That's something they still need to work on, I think, is like weapon tuning and hit registry.
I agree, and I don't know. They did a lot of things that like the fast attachment moving. I know a lot of people like it. A lot of
Absolutely
people don't.
like that. That's realistic because a soldier could have multiple sights on him if he knew
That's right,
that
and
he'd be fighting at multiple distances.
it makes the game more. It makes it move a lot better because, say, I spawned in with the wrong attachments on Battlefield 4. Well, what am I going to do? I have the choice of suffering through and probably not performing well, and in the super high skill-based lobbies where you're trying really hard, if you spawn in with the wrong gun and you still try to play that, you might throw off everything. You're going to throw off where you're aiming. You're going to throw off everything to compensate for that. You spawn in with your new gun, and you're all off because you're trying to compensate for that one. Or you have choice.
Spawning in locker with a DMR, you're not going to perform as good as someone with like an AEK or Scar H.
Absolutely. So you have the choice of running out and committing suicide, or struggling and trying to make something work that you didn't mean to spawn in with. Granted, that is the user's mistake, but it's nice to be able to change on the fly. You're in a building getting kills, whatever. You take the objective. What's next? I've got to go to the next objective unless you're holding it down. What are you going to do whenever you're out in the field? Open fire. You're trying to go into a building where the enemy has the objective. What are you going to do? You've got a reflex sight, a laser. You've got all these attachments geared for clearing buildings. What are you going to do? Like I said, it's like D-Day. You're going to get shot in the field and die. If you had the option to change your, put a scope on, change your barrel, change your, like, everything to a long-range rifle, you'd have it licked. I mean, you would actually at least have a chance against the opposition.
Absolutely.
It just adds a
And I
lot.
think that's kind of what more people should be about when they play is the versatility, not geared towards one set objective. You should be versatile in multiple environments. That would be ideal.
And it might be that there is a group of players in the community that are, basically cancerous. It's just they see change and they hate change. And it's kind of frustrating because the franchise can't grow and change things and make things flow a little bit better because people are so caught up on the past. Like, oh, that format was so good. Why are you changing it? There has to be room for
Absolutely.
change.
I think you have to grow as a person and realize you can't be stuck on the latest release. You have to look forward to the next. I think as we grow as just people in life, we have to be like that. Let
Abs-
alone expecting so much from a game. Like, that's physically impossible.
Absolutely. And we've got to let these franchises go through these growing pains without just beating them down so bad. I don't know. Call of Duty might deserve it because they don't listen to us, but Battlefield they listen. They know. It's to their Steam pages to the point where I don't think it could ever turn it around. It has so many ungodly bad reviews, and they're not getting those back. I think we as a community need to just understand that they are getting pushed. They are cranking out these games faster than they need to. They just need to sit down and develop a game. A long time, probably one of mine and Jordan's favorite games of all time for me. I don't know about for him, but Ark Survival Evolved, great game. We love it. The launch just got pushed back, into next year, and it sucks. But if that's the price we have to pay for a game that's going to be at the bottom, playable before it launches, that's the price we got to pay. It just puts a bad taste in your mouth whenever they put out an unfinished game.
Absolutely. I don't think anyone Why would you want to spend your money on an unfinished product? It's like buying half an engine, for example. It's just and expecting it to run. Like you got no head on one side and no pistons. Why do you expect this engine to run?
And it's just going to leave a bad taste in your mouth because you're expecting what you're not
You're
getting.
expecting something too unrealistic. It's not a plausible outcome.
It would not surprise me in the slightest that there are people out there that played Battlefield at launch and got so upset with it they refunded it and they'll never look back. And that sucks.
Absolutely, I
That
can see that. I bet a lot of people did that with Battlefield 4 when it came out, and look how good it turned out.
Yeah, and it just sucks because they're missing out on this. And you know, some people might say, you know what, they did fix it. I'm gonna rebuy it. I'm gonna re-download it. But I mean, it looks bad. It really does because you have this community, you have this standard you got to meet, and you didn't meet it. You know, you've got people that are unhappy. You've got people that aren't ready to let you go through these growing pains. And I feel like as a franchise, they just need to say, hey, this game isn't ready. We're sorry. If you want a polished game, you're gonna have to wait till then. Maybe you know.
Absolutely, and they should be accepting to give people refunds if that's what they want. I don't think EA. I wouldn't doubt if they didn't want to give refunds, kind of like No Man's Sky. I wouldn't doubt that out of EA just because of how that corporation is ran.
Right. Yeah, I
It's hard to say that EA would do that. I feel like the developers of Battlefield would want that. They seem very nice to the community. But it's hard to say as a corporation that EA would do it. And sometimes these like step parents of games can really hurt the community.
I feel like they have a hard time look. Of course, they're looking at the dollars. They're looking at what they're getting out of it. You know, it's all dollar signs to them. And I feel like if they could just sit down and realize, hey, if we push this back, yes, our fans going to be upset, but they need to see that they could meet us in the middle. They could give us an extra beta. You know, say the game gets pushed back to February. Give us a beta in December. You know, give us something to do. Let us
Absolutely.
let us see what you're doing. Let us give you criticism, and then fix it. You know, it's like it's hard to understand that they haven't cracked this formula, and I'm sure they've at least looked into it. But it just coming from the consumer, it doesn't make sense why they don't do more betas, do more testings. You know, I'm sure they have a small group.
Absolutely.
They have a small
I
group
think
of
that's something that Call of Duty does do good is they release a beta every year and people play it.
yeah, and I believe I can't think of an example off the
I
top
do
of my
think
head.
2042 did it right with their beta. They did have a good beta. I did enjoy playing the beta, and I could tell there were issues, and I was hopeful they would fix them.
And it's almost like some new issues popped up between the beta and the full release because I don't remember you
Yeah,
having
for sure.
terrible issues on the beta. I mean, of course there was, but not so terrible that it
Yeah,
was.
it seems like, or maybe where the game was in beta form and you didn't have to download all the files, there might have been some things that were left out that could have caused frame rate issues or something.
I don't know. I something just comes to mind, and it's just completely bizarre. But it's almost like they made the game unplayable for last gen. I feel like they specifically made it, and again, it's just some crazy
I could,
conspiracy.
I could see that.
They made it so
Call of
bad
Duty
that
Ghosts was like
last
that.
gen couldn't play it, so that you have to move on to this next gen because they had to make a whole different player pool for the last gen players. We as PC players and you as Xbox Series X and PS5 players, you guys can't play with the Xbox One guys, and I'm sure you know that because there's a different pool. They have smaller lobbies, and I don't know about the map sizes, but I can imagine that there's other large changes that were done to compensate for those slower drivers and those system requirements.
You know what absolutely comes to mind when you talk of this?
What?
Black Ops 3 on 360
Huh. Yeah. Yep.
and Call of Duty Ghost on 360 as well. It was designed to be on
It's
the
almost
new
like they didn't
Xbox
try. It's almost
development.
funny to go back and look at those games now because it's almost funny the lack that they put into it. It's almost like
Yeah,
they're
the lack
saying,
of
here
detail.
here you go. You why
And
why even
by
buy
all
it at that
means, the
point?
Xbox 360 should have been dead by the time Black Ops 3 came out.
Absolutely, and it's like why even
It
waste?
blows my mind that people were still on it. Like, you have to upgrade your hardware at some point.
Bad. I could see that. Thinking back, I do say it kind of sounds bizarre, but it kind of doesn't. They're trying to fizzle out last gen, and that's fine. They've got to. It's got its life cycle. It's lived its life cycle. But I feel like for the PC crowd, where there isn't a last gen or next gen, we're just PC. I feel like you should have the option to be in those lobbies where you're with the older crowd. That way you can have the same system requirements as them. So maybe you can play a match. You won't have these optimization issues. You can run it on settings that they're running
Absolutely.
it on so that you can actually play and enjoy the game. From what I've heard and seen, the game isn't Black Ops 3 Xbox 360 level of mishmash. From what it sounds like, it's just a lot smaller player bases. There's a lot less people. There's a lot less entities in the map at one time. So it runs a lot better. There's less stuff. It just makes sense.
I could go on all day about the old gen Black Ops 3. That is the most
Absolutely. And
hilarious release of a game I've ever seen.
there's going to be so much Call of Duty to come. We definitely have topics on Call of Duty. I personally was a Call of Duty person on my come up. Jordan was actually the one that introduced me to Battlefield back in Battlefield 4 days. I love it so much. I'll never. And it's kind of funny talking about Battlefield and Call of Duty. It's kind of funny because back in the day, at least whenever we were in high school, you had the Battlefield crowd and you had the Call of Duty crowd. There was no in between. I mean, there was few
Absolutely.
people.
There was no merging of people back then.
It's kind of wild because it's wild to see that everybody's kind of just playing whatever now. There's no more
I
there's
was
no more
always
wars.
like that, but I definitely remember like in a public scenario. I'm sure anyone in high school, there's probably still groups like this to this day.
I don't even think I was willing to give. I think back before I met you, I don't even think I was willing to give Battlefield a chance. I think that's the main reason I never played it. And one day Jordan walks up to me, he's like, "Hey man, Call of Duty's awesome and all, but have you ever wanted to be the score streak?" I'm like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "Yeah, man, there's this game called
I'll
Battlefield 4.
show
It's
you how
super
to
awesome."
live.
Yeah, and I mean, like that game, Battlefield 4, it's like that. Those games have so much replayability, and I mean, if Call of Duty wasn't 60 something dollars for an old Call of Duty game, I'd have them on Steam too. But you don't see them going for $4 like Battlefield 4 does occasionally.
Battlefield 4 is such a great game. If you do not have it, I would buy it. I would highly recommend picking it up on sale or something.
And ask around, I can't tell you how much more fun the game is with with friends. I mean,
Absolutely. If you have friends, you have to play the games with them. It's so much better.
the main reason I deleted Battlefield 2042 is because Jordan can't play it. And, he's the main person I play with, and it's like you've got no squad mate to spawn on. You're stuck with random people, and that's an issue of 2042. Of course, you can't leave squads or make your own. But I don't want to spawn by Joe Schmo that's been sniping all game. I want to go find my buddy that's pushing up with me, holding spawn. That's the good thing. And vehicle battle, it's so amazing. It just happened to work out to where Jordan's just like the best driver in the game, and like I wouldn't call myself the best gunner guy in the game, but I can say that I'm the best repair boy in the game, and I can have very many testimonies to that. And
Homie doesn't let off the repair torch.
it's a good mesh, and you've gotta get the game. And don't let it being an old game deter you. Battlefield 4 servers are just as populated as you would imagine. Like, I wouldn't say that they are what they were back in the day, but you will not have any issue getting in a lobby. There's still full lobbies.
You can find Rush, TDM,
There's queues, and it's like
Demolition,
I can't
Conquest. It's all there.
I can't stress enough. We're getting ready to come up on a winter sale on Steam, I'm sure. I guarantee it's going to be $4. Don't skimp out. This game is awesome. Find yourself a friend, at some point we if we get a little following, I'd like to do not really open lobbies, well, probably, but we could play with some of the fans if we get to that point. It'd be pretty cool, especially getting a
I
squad of
think
people.
Battlefield 1 would be a lot better for that. As far as anyone wanting a better looking game, if you want something with good graphics, Battlefield 1 graphics are amazing
Absolutely.
compared to Battlefield 4.
Yeah, and it's, to me, Battlefield 1 is the equivalent to Black Ops 3, but not so much. It's one of those games where I can't take Battlefield 1 super serious just because of it's World War 1. There's horses running around. It's not that modern shooter game that I'm used to, but it's a game that I could have a lot of fun with.
Absolutely. I think it's a game that anyone should try for sure.
And the good thing about Battlefield is I don't know about 2042. I'm sure it's implemented, but the main thing that Call of Duty has that just sucks the blood out of players is skill based matchmaking. And I can't imagine Battlefield could implement that with 60 some odd players in a lobby. There's just no way that they would be able to skill
Yeah.
based matchmake that
There's
many
such a
people.
broad way of how people play. Like everyone plays different. Some people don't play objectives or
Yeah, you're gonna run into a guy that's just gonna absolutely obliterate you. But just know there's guys that are running around on the map that are the same skill level and probably less than you. You know, there's such a
that's
wide
what I always
variety.
loved about Call of Duty back in the day is like most people were about the same. Like it was skill-based matchmaking, but it wasn't Sweatfest. It was okay, this is a lobby, it's full of random people. So like you could actually look at people's KDs back in the day. Like I miss that so much.
Absolutely,
I
and that
remember looking at everyone's KD and mine would always be like the highest in the lobby and I'd feel so proud of that. I don't know why it wasn't an accomplishment really, but
yeah, like I said,
I
that
feel like it could be more competitive too. Like when League Play came out on Black Ops 2, I absolutely love that.
yes, and that was the outlet. That was how you got that competitive itch out, and that was perfect. You know, you had if you're just getting home from work, school, whatever, you're like, hey man, this is my first game on. I'm just chilling. Or if you want to play the whole night just like that, you've got regular matchmaking. But if you're like, hey man, let's get two other dudes. Let's take this super serious and let's play some league play. And that was so fun,
Yeah.
man. It's like because it's so hard to play
It
tactically
was
with
so fun
randoms.
playing Search and Destroy knowing every round counted.
Absolutely. And it's like it doesn't make any sense because with skill based matchmaking, it's basically league play every time, you know, more or less. So
Absolutely.
you're
And there's
expected
no casual player base anymore.
right. So you're expected to play tactically with a bunch of people that don't have no mics, have no comms, and you could be playing with a guy who just had four best games in a row and he's going to clean house and win for the team, or you can have the dude that's lost six in a row and he's about to lose seven. You know, the guy who's just going to be sitting in back doing nothing or dying repeatedly.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest problem I have with Call of Duty is skill-based matchmaking. It just killed the casual player base.
And
I remember as a kid, everyone would be on. It didn't matter if the kid was like everyone was on Call of Duty. It didn't matter if they were good or not. It was always fun.
I'm sure we'll get into this much deeper on a Call of Duty. Especially, I feel like we could do a whole topic on skill based matchmaking. It's just
I
plagued the
could
player
talk for
base.
hours on Call of Duty alone.
Absolutely.
I have so many memories and so many opinions to share on that topic.
So Jordan, I think we should definitely wrap this one up. And
Yep.
do you have any final remarks on anything before I give out some announcements?
I believe LS swaps are not overrated when
In
done right.
conclusion,
And as far as Battlefield and moving forward, I think they are doing a great job listening to the community right now.
he just
I
wants to
just
play
think,
Battlefield again.
yeah, I just want to play Battlefield. I think they have sorted a lot of gameplay issues on 2042 to the people who can run it.
We can't buy car parts and PC parts at the same time. They need to
It's
understand that.
very hard.
It's very
It's
hard
hard
being broke
having
and choosing between the two.
guns, computers, and cars. It's very hard to choose.
There's three things just pulling on your wallet all at once, and you're just standing there waiting to see what happens.
Absolutely. I'm like Spider-Man pointing at the other two. Like, where's my money going?
With that being said, I want to wrap this up by saying we have a Discord server. There we have laid out, of course, a general server where you can just talk amongst yourself about the show, whatever comes to mind. Just talk to your fellow audience members. We also have a category for topic ideas. If you want to hear a topic discussed, bring it up to us. Post it in that chat. We'll talk it over, and if it's something that we think we can invest, 45 minutes talking about, we will absolutely do your topic. Lastly, there is one last text channel. It is called Rate My Ride. So essentially, it is what it says it is. For the car portion, whenever we get to the point, we would like to take a group of cars. We want to rate everybody's car, of course, but we want to take just a few cars at a time and go either live on YouTube, or if you guys think you could get into just hearing about this, I can't imagine you'd want to hear about this and not actually see the car. But definitely on YouTube, maybe a live stream or a video. We post your cars, and keep in mind, we will be harshly honest about your build. If we think it's the best build we ever seen, 10 out of 10. But
I will not even rate my own car highly. You will have to have a high quality build for me to be impressed.
Hot takes only. You have to understand that. And
I'm gonna hurt feelings. If my car was on there, I'd be devastated.
If you post your car up there and you're like, man, I'm gonna be pretty hurt if they don't like it. Please don't post your car. You know, it's all in good.
Is advised.
It's in all fun. I'm gonna respect your build because you're one of our audience members, but I'm gonna give you my opinion on the build itself. And I respect that you have the build and that you drive the build, but if we don't like it, you're accepting this by posting your car.
It will be hard to get a high rating for me, but just because you don't get one doesn't mean I hate your build. If I rated your car 5 out of 10, I would probably still drive it. I'm not saying I hate it. It's just as far as a car build, you have to have very good taste. And that is subjective, so it's hard to understand how some people just won't like certain builds.
Absolutely. And, of course, we're as biased as it gets with the LSs, but I respect everything. A very good friend of ours has a Coyote. We love it. It's a great car. And, absolutely don't be afraid to post your car, but just understand that we're going to rate it how we see it, and we're going to try our best not to be too biased. But as far as the quality and the mods go, we're probably going to give a very brutal rating depending on what you have done. And again, please don't let this shy you away, but very, very big viewer discretion is advised. Also,
Absolutely.
One more note, there are 2 voice channels that are inaccessible. Eventually, maybe we might get to the point of taking some call-ins from some viewers. We'll just see where this goes. This is episode 1. We're throwing it all out there for you guys. We're showing you what's available. We're showing you what we got. We're going to try to be the opposite of a 2042 launch. We're going to try to hit it good and hit it hard the first time.
Absolutely.
And just take off from there. If you have any comments,
I will have Hit Reg talking about your car, so be prepared.
If you have any criticism or advice or anything about how we're doing the show, any ideas on what you would change, if we're too loud, we don't know until we post it. And I'm sure Jordan doesn't want to sit here and re-talk about all this stuff that we just talked about. So give us advice. Tell us what you think. That's the whole purpose of the general server. And like I said, topics and Rate My Ride, they're all there. We'll probably create both a YouTube channel and some sort of social media, whether that be Facebook or Twitter. You can find the Discord there because I have no idea if it'll probably be in the Spotify bio if I could figure that one out. But for sure, look up Cars and Health Bars on YouTube. Same icon as what you just clicked on. Come to our Discord. Come chat with us. Jordan, if you don't have anything else, I'm gonna say ta-ta, and we will talk to you guys in the next one. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time.